If you walk around an old mining town, you'll see rocks like this. Black, heavy, almost volcanic. But this isn't a natural rock. This is waste, leftovers from when the miners reduced their ore down to precious metals. But the thing is, the furnaces back in the day weren't perfect. So inside these rocks are still little bits of silver. And today, I'm gonna collect this waste from all around me, see how much silver's in it, and make it into something new. All right, so here's the plan. Today, I'm gonna collect as much of this slag from all around me as I can, reduce it back into pure silver, and try to make a knife. And if I'm looking for slag, I am in a very good location for it, because right now, we're at the site of the Mortimer Bell-Shaw furnace up here at Cerro Gordo. And Cerro Gordo back in the 1800s was the largest silver mine in California, and the Bell-Shaw furnace right here was the largest furnace in town. When this thing was humming in the 1870s, they were refining 30 tons of ore every single day right here. And as part of that, they were producing a lot of slag. Again, this is the waste for when you try to take an ore down to a precious metal. So up here at Cerro Gordo, they were mining a mineral called galena. And galena is lead, silver, sulfur, silica, and some other stuff. And they just wanted the lead and silver. So they would take the galena right here, they would crush it up, they would add in a flux or something to pull out the impurities. That would be soda ash, borax, calcium carbonate. They would heat it up. This would create a nice molten metal. They would pour it off, and all of the heavy metals, the lead and silver, would sink to the bottom. And on the top, as it cooled, that flux would become slag. They would break that off, throw it over the cliff behind me, and take the lead and silver to San Francisco. And the stuff that they would throw over the cliff behind me is what we're after today. All right, so we're back with the slag, and an important first step is to weigh this. We need a baseline to know what we're working off of. So we're gonna weigh this up. From there, we're gonna refine it all the way down to silver, see how much silver we end up with, and from there, make it into our knife. So first, time to weigh. All right, these things are heavy. Some of these buckets were over 100 pounds each, but in total, we have 536 pounds of slag. So 536 is our starting point, and we'll see how much silver comes out of that. All right, we got these all weighed up, but big rocks like this is not gonna fit in my crucible, so we're gonna crush it up with the chipmunk cruncher. This is a jaw mill. We just feed rocks up here, make them smaller, gonna be easier to put in the crucible, then we're gonna heat them up and finally get some of the silver out of this. So we have the slag crunched up once again. I have my other ingredients that we're going to use for the smelt. And back in 1870, there's a newspaper article from up here at Cerro Gordo that shows the exact recipe that they were using when they made this slag. And that one shows 1 part raw galena ore broken into egg size, 1 raw silver rock broken smaller, 2 galena and iron oxide, 1 lime calcium carbonate, and they would end up with these 80-pound pigs, these bars. And it says that there's some scum on the surface. They would scrape that off. And what they were trying to do was get any precious metals out of the ore. They had ore, I have their waste. But here I am 155 years later, and we're trying to do basically the same thing. You know, I have soda ash. That's what I'm going to be using as my slag instead of calcium carbonate. I have some iron that I'm going to be adding into it. I just found some rusted stuff from around the property. And then I have the slag, and we are going to heat it up. And basically what's going to happen is, as this flux and this slag mix together, this soda ash helps dissolve any of the silica or other impurities in this slag, and it's going to create that glassy layer on top. And the iron acts as a reducing agent, meaning this iron is going to grab the oxygen from any lead or silver oxides that are in this slag, and it's going to turn them back into their pure metallic form. And those heavy metals are going to sink to the bottom. And you can see this cone mold over here. So the idea is I'm going to heat it up in this furnace, pour it into here, and any heavy metals are going to sink to the bottom of that cone. So let's get hooked cooking and hope that these miners left a little bit behind for us. So I'm crushing up this slag so the jaw crusher doesn't have such a hard job. And one piece is really interesting. Check this out. Look at that top band. It almost looks like pure galena. It's very shiny, glimmery, and that just shows that maybe they took off too much of the slag and it dipped in to where the actual ore that they wanted was. So I'm recovering a lot there. There's a lot other little pieces of that flew off as well, you know, like this piece that just looks so shiny. So I'm confident we're gonna get a decent amount out of it. That one, the mine owner wouldn't have been too happy with, but I am all these years later. All right, first moment of truth. I poured the first batch in there, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna flip this over, and the hope is at the bottom of this, there's a little cone of silver and lead. That's the hope if they left anything behind and I did this right. So let's flip this thing over and see how this thing's going. So after that, I have some new slag that's much lighter, and this little cone of metal. You can tell it's metal because I can beat it. See how it's still together? If you do that with a piece of slag, first try, it's gonna smash into a million pieces. So this is the lead and silver that was left. And so now, all I need to do is this about 20 more times. Then we'll collect all of these little cones, melt them back together, and then go from there. So be ready for a lot of batches. Right now is a very interesting time to be doing this experiment because the price of silver has gone crazy in the past 3 months. It went from $50 an ounce to $100 an ounce to touching $120 an ounce. And inevitably, that leads people to ask me, are you gonna get the Cerro Gordo mines going again? Which is a valid question, because back in the day, this was the largest silver mine in California. If you look at the production reports, it's showing a production of 4.4 million ounces of silver. There's a 6-year stretch where they report 3.1 million ounces of silver during that time. And if you do the math, that's, let's call it at $100 an ounce, that's $310 million over the course of that 6 years. And that would go a long way, obviously, in my goal of restoring and preserving Cerro Gordo. But mining is not a business that I have an interest in being any part of. My hope is to create a destination here that people can come to for a very long time. That said, if it's just recycling, if I'm just finding the rock that's already been mined and has been discarded on the surface, maybe that is a different story. And if I could get a few thousand pounds of that every weekend just picking up rocks, then hey, we'll see. So as this experiment goes on and I can see how much I'm able to extract, maybe we'll have a conversation of what that looks like. I'll tell you what, doing these little small batches is not quick. We're getting down there. We're getting some good silver and lead. But what if I could go twice as fast? That's what I was wondering a couple days ago. And now a second furnace. I'm going to unpack this thing. And we're going to start doing double duty. So we actually get down to the lead and silver and get on with this process. Stocked up on propane, about to be stocked up on furnaces. Let's do this thing. All right, now we're cooking 2 furnaces, bigger crucibles. We're getting this done today. We're getting down to our lead and silver that we need. Then we're making a knife. Love it. All right, slight change of plans. I've gotten through 100 pounds of the slag and I'm getting a lot more lead and silver out of it than I thought I would. So I'm gonna take all these things, put them down in here. We're gonna melt this down to try to get some of this flux off of here. And then we're gonna see how much lead and silver we got from that 100 pounds. And that should be plenty of pure silver to make the knife. So I'm gonna heat this up, add a little flux, then we'll get one big cone of it and keep going from there. All right, so after 100 pounds of slag left on the ground, look at all of this pure metal that we have. This is lead and silver all combined. Now for the real moment of truth, we're gonna see how much lead and silver combined was in 100 pounds of ore. 6.5 pounds. Actually not as much as I would have liked, but I actually need probably double that. So here's a very quick montage of even more smelting with 2 smelters. And double confirming our first at a weight of 6.5 pounds from the first 100 pounds of ore. And the second 100 pounds gave us about 5.25. So combined, 5.25, 6.5. And now comes the fun part. We need to convince the silver that's locked up inside this lead and silver bullion to separate from the lead. We're going to do a process called the Parks process. And the Parks process was created by a guy named Alexander Parks in the 1950s. And he figured out that if you introduce zinc to a molten lead and silver mixture, that silver has a much higher affinity for zinc than it does lead, and zinc and lead also separate. So what that means in practice is if we heat up this lead and silver, we introduce a little bit of zinc, the silver is going to bind to the zinc at the surface and create this crust. So we can scrape off the crust of just silver and zinc, later burn off the zinc because it has a lower melting point, and be left with just pure silver for our knife. This is a process that they did not do up here at Cerro Gordo back in the day. It was too complicated. They would ship the bars of both lead and silver to San Francisco because they didn't want to ship pure silver bars out of Cerro Gordo because it would have been the target of every bandit in the West. But today we are after the pure silver. So I'm going to take this 11 or 12 pounds of silver and lead back outside into the crazy wind you might be able to hear. We're going to burn off the zinc and we're going to be left with pure silver. All right, after all that work, I am left with this mass of metal that should be all of our silver, some of the zinc, and inevitably I probably scooped up a little bit of lead too. So now what we're gonna do is burn off the zinc and get rid of any of the lead. And we're gonna do that through a process called cupellation using cupels. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hack this piece of metal into a bunch of different pieces. We're gonna put it into a number of cupels, heat it up, the zinc will burn off, the lead will absorb into this, and then we'll be left with some silver beads. So we're gonna finally know how much silver I got out of that 200 pounds of slag. All right, after many days of smelting, 200 pounds of slag, I am left with 125 grams of silver, which is just over 4 troy ounces. And today, silver is trading for about $100 an ounce. So that's about $400 worth of silver. So in a way, that slag is worth about $2 a pound plus whatever value the lead has. And I just did the math, and 125 grams out of 200 pounds is about 0.14% silver by weight. And it's about right. I was hoping for a little bit more, to be honest. 4 ounces is gonna be a stretch to make our knife out of. But at this point, I'm going to melt this down, pour it out into a mold, and then we're gonna start working on this knife. But just over 4 ounces, that's what we got, and that's what we're gonna make work. The rain is really coming down now, and something that has been a part of my routine for the past 5 years, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm smelting silver, exploring the mines, or going on hikes, has been Element. Element is an electrolyte mix that's just sodium, potassium, magnesium. Comes in these easy little packets. All you gotta do is pop them open, throw them in a water bottle, and you're good to go. And if you're out there and you wanna give it a shot, they're giving an 8 sample pack with any purchase. All you have to do is go to drinkelement.com/Brent, and they will hook that up. This has been a huge game changer for me for the past 5 years, and I hope you guys check it out. So the first time I heated it all up, I poured it out. When I poured it, it created layers in the silver that then when I smashed it, it kind of flaked apart. So instead, I heated it up just in the mold, and the result is this beautiful piece. It's nice and thick, so let's roll this a couple times, start making a knife. So here's our silver, a little bit rolled out, not enough to start cracking. And this is a knife design that I found for free online. So I'm gonna outline this on here. We're gonna take it over to the bandsaw, cut this out. This later I'm gonna make out of pinyon pine that I found falling down here at Cerro Gordo. And this will be enough to make it strong. So we're gonna cut this out and start making it down into a knife. So after all that, we got our rough blade of our knife here. And don't worry if you're thinking, hey, there's some scraps over there. Those aren't gonna go to waste. I'm gonna figure out something to do with those too. I need to smooth it out a little bit more, but this thing is looking sweet. Now our blade's really starting to come along. I got some paint on there for when I was flattening it, but you can see what I did now is I marked the center line of the blade. So now when we look down there, you can see where the center of it is. So now I'm going to start filing in towards that center on both ends. And slowly this should look more from just a clunk of metal into a knife. Then eventually I'm going to drill our hole there for the bevel, and then we're going to put the handle on. But now it just takes a little bit of filing and we're going to get this thing looking good. Now it's time for the handle. And this is pinyon pine that has fallen down around Cerro Gordo that I milled up a while back and I've been letting dry. And so I'm gonna go in here and pick out the right piece. Very unique to have silver from Cerro Gordo slag plus a pinyon pine handle. That's really nice. So we're gonna get a piece out of here and carve this thing up. All right, you can see I got the handle with the epoxy on the blade, and now I'm gonna let that cure for a while. Then I'm gonna sand down that handle to make it look pretty, and that knife is gonna be there. Still wanna make it a little bit more of a mirror finish on that, but look at that. That's looking pretty good if I do say so myself. Back the next day, it looks like our epoxy's dry. It's time start working on this handle. It's feeling like a knife, which is good. Take it back over here to the sander, but pinyon pine with silver from Cerro Gordo, this is going to be a really special knife. Let me get a little polish and some stain on this thing, but ooh-wee, that's looking good. Heck yeah. Woo! And just over a month later, I am back to where I originally collected all of this waste rock that was discarded and forgotten about, deemed to have no value. And with a little bit of love and a lot of work, this waste became this beautiful knife. And this item was made with things that, again, people overlooked. And I think my general motto at Cerro Gordo over the past 5 years has been, that's not the case. You know, whether it's the slag on the ground, a building, or a whole town, I feel like this place still has a lot more than people give it credit for. And this is just a small example of that. And I think it came out beautifully. It's been one of my favorite projects over the years, is to take forgotten things and bring them back to life. And during this, there was a bit of extra silver that I cut off and shaved off that I melted back down and stamped into a coin. And I'm gonna give that away to one of you guys for supporting this town and watching this video. There'll be a link below, it's free to enter, check it out. But this knife is beautiful. I am gonna cherish this for a very long time. Hopefully somebody does after the fact. And again, always take a look around you, because there's probably things that people have discarded and thought have no value anymore, and you can be the one to bring them to life. I appreciate you guys checking out this video. I hope you guys have an amazing week. And if you ever want to check out this knife, it'll be here in our museum up at Cerro Gordo. Till next time, hope you guys have a great week. See you later.